Alicia. Thank you for joining us today and giving us your time. And we're just going to talk about some of the big things that are impacting B2B marketing today and B2B marketers today, like CMOs like yourself. My first question is actually I wanted to talk about some of the clients you work with and the big issue facing them, which is digital transformation. You work with clients in so many different industries, right from the traditional brick and mortar kind of industries down to the very digitally savvy ones. I'd like to talk about the more traditional B2B enterprises and how they've embraced, in your opinion, the whole digital transformation challenge.
I think it's a great question, and it's a pleasure to spend time with you and to talk about some of these opportunities in our industry today. I find that, by and large, there is, whether you are traditional or more of a modern organization, the question on the role of digital within an organization is one that everyone has. I think that your more modern organizations come to the table with a bit more of a defined point of view on how digital technologies can support their businesses, while more traditional companies are looking more for our guidance, our insights, and our direction. And it plays beautifully into how we've built our business model, which really looks to, and will also say that even as savvy as you are, there are still a lot of complexities and a lot of technologies out there to make sense of. And so design thinking is a practice within SAP that, we first and foremost like to deploy when it comes to helping organizations really map the best technologies for their opportunities and their challenges. And so design thinking is always an incredible practice, especially for companies that don't know where to start, because it really helps to get to the root of what they're looking to solve for before we then start to build out a digital footprint for them in their organizations.
What role do you think MarTech is playing in helping to bridge that gap between, what's happening on the shop floor and what's happening between decentralized sales teams and the actual end consumer, which is, could be someone buying a car sitting somewhere out there in the digital world?
Yeah, so I think that marketing plays an incredible role in helping to create a very connected and a seamless customer journey. So from the awareness stage to the advocacy stage, it's very important that we're driving consistency in our messaging, as well as driving consistency across all of those customer touch points. And so technology plays a very critical role there in helping to connect all of those touch points. And marketing can be and should be a significant owner of a lot of those touch points, but there's also many touch points that a customer has with other parts of our organization as well. And so, deploying technologies within marketing that really help connect our social footprint or connect the process for how we drive demand and how we nurture and then pass that demand to our sales colleagues. How we think about the distribution of content across various channels. Technology can be an enabler in that. And so I do believe that more than ever, customers are demanding a very consistent experience in the form of how you message and in both the various touch points that you have. And that's a significant role that marketing tools and technologies can play to help to enable that. And it needs to be a very strategic part of your marketing organization, having a body of people that are really looking after your marketing technology stack is something that I would certainly recommend because it's an enabler of not only, to your question of improving efficiencies and how marketing works in support of the business and collaborates with the business, but then also externally in terms of how marketing really works to connect that customer journey across all of the various touch points.
How does a B2B CMO balance, all of the benefits that come with having this sort of DIY technology at their fingertips, the flexibility, the speed, with actually co-creating technology solutions with IT experts within the organization?
Yeah, one of the things that you had mentioned was this notion of speed. And using technology to enable that speed is absolutely, a way in which technology is used. And, the practice that we have within SAP is, we want to operate as fast as we possibly can in the most efficient way, and working very closely with our operations and our technology teams is key. And then we're going to always utilize the best technologies to enable those efficiencies and that effectiveness that we need to drive. And so, when we look across the technology stack, it's important that we're operating with speed, and we're operating with scale, and we're operating with relevance. And, having technology that can deliver against all three of those guiding principles is very fundamental to how we want to run our marketing organization. And having a very strong partnership with our head of technology, our head of operations, these are must-haves because there's always going to be that necessary support around integration that is going to need to happen to be able to run an effective technology stack. And so, the more you have this ability to collaborate and, help the internal teams understand what we're after and understand the sense of urgency and what our technology will impact around the customer experience, and the more you're able to enable that knowledge sharing internally, the more effective you work internally as a team to create that speed necessary to connect the technology stack with each other.
What's your take on how CMOs can truly embrace the whole customer engagement challenge and the role of MarTech in that?
Yeah. So first and foremost, we need to make it a requirement for our marketers that they're in the field spending time with customers and prospective customers. I don't think we see that enough as a general operating practice, but I do believe it needs to be a requirement if we are going to be accountable for building content to drive awareness and to drive demand. We've got to make sure that those messages are relevant and they're delivered in a message and of substance that really resonates with the customer. And the best way to enable that is making sure that we are hearing firsthand from the customers. And so to be able to drive a stronger engagement with the customer, it's important that we're out in the field interacting more with them. And then understanding that, I believe, helps shape the innovation, the journey, and the understanding of how our customers are consuming information. So we know where to go and we know how to best connect all of those touch points along the journey so that we are creating the most engagement, because we're delivering messages that resonate with the customer. We're delivering them in a tone of style that they can appreciate. And we're delivering them in a very connected and seamless way because we've taken the time to understand where they are and how they're consuming information.
Is engagement becoming boxed into some areas, or is MarTech, does it have the potential to really drive engagement through the spectrum?
If engagement is being relegated to a single place in the funnel, in the journey, in a place in your organization, then you will never create the engagement with a customer that's required throughout their journey with you. And I feel very strongly about that. I do see organizations oftentimes have this imbalance between the effort they put on bringing the customer in the door versus the amount of effort they put in keeping the customer in the house. You see a lot of effort and energy generally put in the front half of the cycle and less resource and focus on the journey throughout the cycle. And that needs to change because engagement needs to happen across every stage of that cycle, from driving that initial awareness to then really working across the journey to really enabling them to be the strong advocates of your brand to in fact enable customers for life. And so if you don't find that your technology is enabling that engagement across the full customer journey, then I will probably guarantee to you that you're going to be challenged in your ability to create strong loyalty scores if you're in a company that measures net promoter scores or advocacy. You're going to be challenged in your ability to really drive that holistically with your customer base.
What would be your top tips to CMOs that are looking to seamlessly integrate the whole concept of customer experience, not just in the website, not just in the phone call, but through everything, every touch point in the organization? What would be your top tips?
So my first and foremost tip would be get a true handle on where your customers are. So how and where and when are your customers engaging with your brand today? So I think an audit of where those activities are happening needs to happen first and foremost. The second thing that I would say is once you understand that, I think it's important to know what resonates with them. So when they are interacting or showing up at your events, or they're visiting your website, or they're opening up your latest email campaign, what are they reading? What are they doing? What are they thinking? So really sort of understand how they're consuming and what specifically is of interest to them. Then I would say the third step is to then assemble a content strategy across all of those channels that really takes on board what matters to the customer. So if they're very much interested in always learning about your product roadmap or your vision, or hearing from other customers about successes they've had in utilizing your technology, how do you build a content footprint that spans across all of those different channels in which they're interacting with you? And then I would also say, as my fourth and probably final step would be, what are the technologies that you are then deploying to enable you to understand the listening? Like, how can technology help you understand where customers are and how they're consuming information and what's relevant to them? And then how can you use and identify technology that enables you to create that connected customer experience across all of the channels in which they're participating? I find that technology needs to almost become this web that gets wrapped around the strategy. And often I find that people do that in reverse. They identify the technology first and they want to use that technology to set the strategy. But technology is an enabler of a strategy. And unless you have a clear vision and a clear roadmap of where you want to go, then technology is never going to be able to effectively meet what your goals are, because they need to be set first. And that also helps you understand what is the best technology required to help you achieve your goals.
in the space that we work and live in today, what would be some of the key skills that marketers need to embrace that are not taught in business school today, for example?
So I would say have a sense of purpose when you think about innovation. I find that buyers today are not only interested in technology that helps them solve the everyday practical challenges that a company is looking to achieve, but they're also looking for companies that stand for something and have purpose at its core. And a company's purpose, in my view, is defined by the individual values that employees bring to their companies each and every day. And understanding what motivates you and what you're good at and what your values are and how you deliver those values in terms of how you innovate on behalf of the customer, that's really important that as you come into the workforce, you understand about yourself pretty quickly because employers are really looking for, individuals that have a real sense of self and a sense of purpose that will have an ability to improve or really help to accelerate the culture in which they're coming into. And so know your values, know your purpose, and be consistent to that and use it to drive how you think and how you contribute and how you collaborate and how you innovate.
I'd love to wrap up this session with a quick question on what's your take on the big trends coming up in B2B marketing? What should we be excited about? And also, what's cooking at SAP? Anything we should be watching out for?
So I would say one of the biggest trends is something that I don't know if it's necessarily a trend, but it's something that I'm certainly, pushing my marketers towards, which is, look, we work in B2B marketing, but in order to really stay relevant today, I want everybody to put aside your traditional manners in which you develop B2B marketing. And that has historically been about marketing to a handful of decision makers within an organization and really focused on, how you're supporting the practical challenges that they're looking to solve every day. And so if I'm going to say to them, which I do, put that aside and let's start fresh and let's recognize that everybody is a consumer. And even though we may sell to just a handful of people within an organization, there are many consumers. And in fact, every employee within that company is going to be consuming our product on some level. And they are becoming more empowered with their voices today than they have, in the past number of years in terms of how they influence decisions. And so we have got to think about how we spin B2B marketing on its head and recognize that everyone is a consumer, and to take that on board as we think about the message we deliver, the style of the message, and how we deliver that message. And so first and foremost, that's a big focus of ours. And in terms of what's happening at SAP, one of the things that I've spent a tremendous amount of time on in my past 3 months since I've been in the role is to really look at the SAP story and to make sure that, and based on so much of our conversation about there needing to be consistency in our voice, well, in order for that to happen, there needs to be consistency in our story at the top level. So we're working to really write that story and truly what is the value of SAP and how are we differentiated? And we've been spending an incredible amount of time over the past few months to really articulate that in a way that we know not only resonates for our customers, but is the most relevant in terms of what they expect from SAP when they partner with us. And so that's a big thing that's on the horizon for us. We're going to really go quite big in retelling the SAP story. We're going to broaden our reach because SAP is showing up in many more circles of influence than we ever have before, and showing how many are touching SAP technology when they might not have known it. We want to be able to showcase that, and especially showcase how our technology is being used to help drive purpose, because we're a company where our heritage has always been based on purpose and innovating in support of the economy and the environment and in society. And there are incredible stories of how our customers are using our technologies to solve many of the challenges that exist in our world today. And so we're going to spend some time telling that story because it's what matters to people today. And sure, they need technologies to solve those practical challenges that I've talked about. But what's becoming even more important to them is that we are giving them technologies that are serving a purpose. And purpose has always been at our core. And so you'll see that become a big part of our story as well.
That's really exciting. I know that, and thank you for always being a champion of marketing with a purpose. That's been one of your core philosophies, in all that you've spoken about. To bring that into the story, and we're excited to hear in the years coming about how people are using SAP technology to really move the world forward and make it a better place. As well as how your marketers are now going to involve more than the top few decision makers into the whole marketing philosophy. That's something I think is something we can all learn from. So looking forward to that, and thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Oh, and thank you so much for the time and the discussion today. I really enjoyed it.